Good day, strategy gamers, and welcome back to episode 29 of our Let's Play series, War in the East 2, Stalingrad to Berlin campaign. In this episode, we're going to be finishing up turn 15 and going over the turn 15 end of turn summary after we wrap up all of our ground movement phase. In the previous episode, it was a thrilling encounter as along the entire length of our front against the Germans, we had battle after battle, and we must have taken somewhere near 30 different hexes across the front line, which was just fantastic. We had breakthroughs around Leningrad, Adritsa, Smolensk, and even now you see where we had success around Orel. So it was very exciting, action-packed. We even skipped the air execution phase for the sake of time, and we still ran the episode to about an hour. So in this episode, we're going to be cutting straight through to go through the action. I know I've really tried to stay consistent that the second episode of each turn we introduce new mechanics, new learnings, specific to features that we have not yet touched on in the series. In this episode, given the amount of ground content that we may have to cover, we may not have time for that. And we may look to try to fill that void in a future episode where, the eventual thing will happen here where we can't push as strongly as we're pushing right now forever. We're eventually going to have to let our supply lines catch up. In those episodes, we'll try to make up for it by maybe doing double duty on new mechanics that we introduced to you. We're going to go right into it again for the sake of time and continue looking at action that we had along the front and where we have opportunities to push through. Because of them reallocating so many of their forces along the front line, we found a lot of new openings that haven't existed before for us. I think the one exception that I'm seeing is they have brought in a huge concentration of mechanized and armored units along this front right here. This is just southeast of Orel, and I'm not seeing any area here where we can push through. Here's the interesting note that I will point out to the viewer. They're bringing in the winter of 1943, a whole bunch of armor around Kursk. Does that sound familiar to any other history buffs of the World War II Eastern Front? So for those who may not remember, in 1943, the German High Command planned a massive offensive in and around Kursk with huge armor elements that ended up proving to be the largest tank battle in human history in the summer of 1943. And that buildup started in the winter and lasted into the late summer, which actually was one of the reasons that they were unsuccessful, is because the Soviets said, well, all across the front line, the Germans keep bringing panzer divisions here to reinforce their front. Maybe that's a sign? We're going to read it as such too. My gut tells me they might be looking to try to do some type of counterattack here. Now, instead of redeploying forces along the front line to try to reinforce this, for now at least, I'm going to leave things exactly as they are. And here's my reasoning for that. I believe that everywhere on the front, aside from this pocket that we're looking at right here, we have such incredible numerical advantages to press, for example, with the ability to force our way through to Riga and cut off the entire army group north that had surrounded Leningrad, to our ability to push through to Smolensk and have serious concerns for the Germans of us being able to break out towards Minsk, all the way down here to our successful encirclement of Rostov and now our push on Stalino as we make our way towards Odessa to cut off the Crimea. Everywhere else on this front line, we are winning time and time again. And I think we have enough units here that even if this is their plan, even if the AI is following a bit of a historical buildup of forces here, I don't know that even if they break through, it's going to be enough to change the tide of the war. Heck, I could be wrong and it could be devastating. I mean, maybe we end up losing entire armies, much as the Soviets did in the summer of 1944 at the beginning of Operation Barbarossa. But even if we lose these 4 armies that are defending this entire stretch of the front, I think that's a price we're going to be willing to pay if every other strategic objective we have is successful. So we're going to be mindful of this. We're going to let our units dig in. We're not going to be aggressive. We're going to make sure they're full of supply. And we're going to be very cautious and wary of what we see in these hexes. And I even think in one example here, I'm actually going to take the 100th Rifle Division and the 4th Guard Tank Corps. I'm even going to move them back, right? We had taken that hex in the previous turn. I'm going to move them back because it is so obvious the type of counterattack they were going to be able to execute with all of these units here. And the value of being in a defensive position is so great that I don't think we should just give that away, right? So, you know, even as I hover over some of these units, I look at it and they already have 3-to-1 odds here, here, here. Actually, I don't know that they do there. They have 2-to-1 odds there. That we're just going to play things a little more cautious. And with that, I might even take back these 2 units, I think. Yeah, I'm going to take back this Rifle Division here and this Rifle Brigade here. And we're going to move this HQ unit. It's not as good for our supplies, but I'm going to move the HQ unit back here to the city. Because I just think we're in a better defensive position if we do so. Yeah, good. Now, what we did actually do is, we'll get to this a little later in the episode, because I want to do this all at once. All the forces that had encircled Stalingrad, we now have moving out and about. We did have one army, the 62nd Army, that we had actually brought up here to... The original intent was to try to use them to help break through in this area just south of Kursk. I think what we'll actually end up doing now, though, is we'll probably end up redeploying them to try to help reinforce right here, just to the west of Voronezh, right? I think that's what we'll end up doing with the 62nd Army, and that should be enough then to fight back any type of advance they may be trying to plan in the winter of 1943. Again, if the AI is actually following a historical tactic of building up near Kursk for a summer offensive, that's going to be some serious news we'll have to give more attention to than we are right now in this episode. Right? If that is actually their intent, we need to devise some type of plan to make sure that they don't just push all the way through. The good news is they would have a long ways to go to try to get to Moscow or anywhere else. Their strategic objectives of pushing through here right now especially are so minimal, I'm not worried. Alright, all of that defensive paranoia aside, let's keep blowing things up, shall we? So, looking down here in this pocket, it is a little similar to what we have further north towards Kursk, so we're going to hold our line just as we have been, right? And we're in a even much better position with this 40th Army than we were up here. So those guys are all fine. Here we start to get to the situation where, right, we really want to take this rail line. We really want to take this. The trouble is we don't have the forces to do so right now. And again, that was one of the intents of bringing up the 62nd Army, was our theory was if we could push south straight behind these units, it would then compel them to retreat and we could then capture this rail line. I don't think that's going to be achievable in the next 3 to 4 turns, so we're just going to continue holding our position, especially as we see how this further develops along the Kursk front. I think this is going to be pretty important in the coming turns that we have to play out. So moving along, though, to where we can blow some stuff up, I think we probably have an opportunity here to try to push out this Hungarian Light Division that exists here. I just want to check to make sure that none of these units are too terribly depleted. And like I worry when I see this 270th Rifle Division and look at their TOE. Right, they're not in a very healthy position. I worry a little bit about that. This motorized group here. Sorry, wrong box. All right, well here's a new feature. This will be the small new feature we can do. You can actually set for a particular unit a max TOE. And this can be useful if you really want to micromanage. Where are your replenishing resources, your manpower, your equipment, all of these things, where are they going? Right? So you can actually cap out a TOE on specific units. So if this unit did not matter to us, and if they're currently at, let's just say 70% TOE, we might put in here that its max TOE is 75%. So then reinforcements don't go here and instead go to units that we want them to be in, right? There we go. See, I wasn't expecting it, but we introduced a new feature / mechanic that we haven't touched on before in the episode. Commitment fulfilled. So if we attack with all of these units, it's almost 3-to-1. But I do worry about the vulnerability of this unit to counterattack as it is surrounded by these three. No, hogwash. We're going to attack. And they retreated. I don't know what I was thinking. They can't counterattack from 3 hexes if we push them out of one of the hexes. Right? Come on. That's simple. But we will leave these guys back here, I think. And what we will do instead is along this front, we're going to take... Let's actually just take this stack to push these guys back. That's 3-to-1, so should be fine. And then we're going to take these and move them up. Their fatigue is a little high, but we're going to move them up. They, so they have defensive value of about 4 versus 10. So maybe what we will do is we're going to take the 6 guard. Oh no, we've exhausted all the movement points. We can't move you in between. See, this is where sometimes you can get a little too anxious in your movements and actually end up hurting yourself because now we can't get any reinforcements into that hex to help them. So our last desperation move is going to be to look at the 3rd Guard's army and say, are there any support units we can assign to try to help their defense? So let's add the 699th Anti-Tank Regiment. It's not much, but it's something. Continuing down the line here, we've got, let's see, 30 versus 18, not quite good enough, but here we have 30 versus 11, so we could push through in this hex. What's the status of these units? You're a little high on fatigue too. I don't like that so much, how high some of you are. So I think we might let these guys just sit a turn out, right? So what we're going to do is we're also going to bring up this entire group, I think, and have them occupy this hex. No, see, we're not going to make the same mistake we just made. We're going to take this rifle division, and we're going to take this rifle division. And then we're going to take this 18th Tank Corps, I think. And we're going to move them down here. Yeah. So now we have a defensive value of 6, which should be plenty against their 8 for offensive. Also going to move up that artillery 1. And move up this 1st Guards 1. And here we, yeah, let's get rid of you. My goodness. So here's where they tried to break through a little. So let's look at some of these battle results. Oh, and actually here they did too. So here we managed to hold against the 2nd Romanian Corps, the 42nd Romanian Corps, or Hungarian, excuse me, and this Luftwaffe Field Division. So we managed to hold out there. Pretty even odds between the 2 forces. But then on the 2nd turn, we actually had the 2 rifle divisions and the 2nd Guard Tank Corps actually retreated as they were forced back by the 20th Panzer Division and the 1st Slovenian Mobile Division and the Romanian Cavalry Division, right? So pretty strong forces there. Bit of a tank battle. We lost 53 tanks. They lost 33. Let's take a look at that because we do have bit of a fascination with some of the equipment that's being used here. Okay, so the the Germans were using the LT-34, LT-40s. Trying to remember my history. I feel like that was actually... Was that a Soviet-made tank? The LT-38 and the LT-40? Maybe not. Maybe it's just a generic light tank 1938 that they had made. But that name feels familiar to me. But anyways, a lot of Panzer IIIs. Panzer 38T, again, bit of a lighter asset compared to our 23 T60s we lost in 16 T34s. That was a pretty significant battle there. So we did lose there. Then we got pushed back again with this rifle division. They continued their advance. And then here it actually looks like the artillery division we had retreated. The Panzer Corps continued on. They had a lot of attacks here. They tried to follow up against the 2nd Guards Army, but we successfully held them off. I bet you that was that Panzer unit there, and maybe one of these. Is this... I think that one's an Italian. No, that's a Romanian, isn't it? I think it's a Romanian unit. So let's see now if we can't push back this Panzer unit. Although I ask myself this. Let's do something here. Let's encircle that Panzer unit. That's what we're going to do. We're going to encircle that Panzer unit. We're going to move up these 2 rifle divisions. That's going to exhaust them. But down here we have all of these lovely units that can come up and help. And the 89th make it can't. But anyways, that's a rifle corps. Let's go there. There. Yeah, we're going to encircle that unit. So if we can hold this for 1 turn, what it's going to mean is that unit then will be lost, right? It will surrender because it's been encircled, gets attacked from all sides, etc., has no route to escape. So we're going to kind of force their hand to say, yeah, you know what? Try to break through. Try to go through the 2nd Guards Mechanized and try to rescue your unit. And we'll see how that goes for us. I think that should be interesting to see how that plays out. Over here, we take like this 2nd Guard tank. We're just going to make sure that we completely encircle this unit. Right, so they have no chance of getting out of there. Good. Good. Do we do a hasty attack against some of these maybe? I think so. I think that would make sense. So let's use this 1st Guard to attack here first. So it looks like we scouted them. Did I read correctly that there was a Panzer Corps there? Or there was part of the Panzer Corps? Yeah, so its defensive value was higher than our recon had suggested. But we did rout the Italian Mountain Division. So there is that. Good news. Good news indeed. Okay. A little worried about this hex as it can have counterattack from these 5 infantry divisions. Right, so that is a little less than ideal. Maybe... What's your defensive value? 3? I'm wondering if we don't actually move you here. We're going to move up this HQ unit, by the way. Get them back in range. Let's do this. You can't make it up there. You go there? No? I feel like maybe we will sacrifice this unit. Feels like it would be worth it. we're going to sacrifice that rifle division. That's what we're going to do. And then we're going to move up this entire stack as part of the 44th Army here. There we go. And now, any type of counterattack here into this hex, they're not going to have enough with just these two stacks. Maybe there's more that we don't have reconnaissance on. And again, Fog of War has played such a critical role in this series so far. Yeah, I think that could go well. Now, the worst case here, by the way, worst case, is that this Panzer unit does break through against the 96 Rifle Division, and then they escape to, like, this hex, or even just this hex, right? Okay, we can either try to encircle them again, or we just keep attacking them until they rout. Right? There's lots of options there. Let's see if we can't assign support units to try to help with your defense, though, against a... to help against a Panzer unit. I'm trying to think if it's better to have a 1st Guards Heavy Tank Regiment, right? Heavy tank sure would be nice. Or to have an anti-tank regiment. I think we're going to assign the 1st Guards Heavy Tank Regiment. And when we look at the elements of that, it should be KV-1Ss. Yeah, so 18 KV-1Ss come as part of that. It doesn't add a whole lot to the defensive value of the hex. But when we go back and we look at what the 2nd Panzer had... Yeah, so there's the 2nd Panzer. It's down to 71 armor, it looks like. What were they attacking with? So they have Panzer IIIs, which are light tanks, and Panzer IVs, which would be kind of equivalent to our T-34s. And they only had 12 of them. So the bet I'm making here is that our KV-1Ss would absolutely destroy a bunch of German light tanks trying to break through our lines. That's what I'm banking on. I think that might work. So that's the plan there. Continuing down the line as we do. This particular hex should be perfectly fine with its defensive value as is. So I'm wondering if we don't press the attack here against this Luftwaffe Field Division to try to prevent them from getting too dug in, right? So if we take all of this, we are looking at almost 3-1. Let's give it a try. They held, but we did reduce their fortification level, so that's something. I think we will now take... Oh, we don't have enough movement points to retreat any of you. Isn't that lovely? Here we have the 58th Army that was moving up. Where is your HQ, 58th Army? My goodness, you need to get to the front. So we're going to move the 58th Army HQ up real quick here. Just don't mind that. And I think we might put in one of these infantry divisions and take out the 5th Guard tank. So let's do the 223rd Rifle Division to help reinforce that line. Yeah, so that's plenty to hold out against some type of counterattack. And then we're going to take these 2 rifle divisions, and we're going to add to it the 143rd Rifle Brigade. Let's take a look here if they had any counterattacks in this area. Nothing here. Further down here they did have more though, so we'll get to that later. Right here we had this Cavalry Corps. Let's see. 25, 9, but yeah, you've been moving a lot, so I think we'll let you wait a turn. I think we take the 126th and the 91st. We're going to move you up 1 hex. And then we're going to take 126 up. Defensive value of 2.5. And then we're going to bring up this 3rd Guards Cavalry. So now our defensive value comes out to about 6.5 versus their 23. Not good enough. Let's bring up... Ooh, panic again now. Let's bring up this 34th Guard. No, you don't have enough to get there. Shoot. I think we might have to bring up this 27th Guard and kind of exhaust them to get there. I don't know if that's worth it, though. Let's just take this 300th Rifle Division and move you up. This defensive value now comes out to be 9 pretty much. Okay, so we're going to be a little vulnerable there. I'm optimistic that they're going to sit here and go, yeah, we've got our HQ unit here for the Romanian army. We're on the defensive. Now's not the time to attack them. I'm hoping all of these types of equations go into their head. Then going to take this stack of the 58th Army. We're actually just going to bring you up to be kind of reservists here. There we go. You already have 3 in that hex. We're going to move you up here. I think we're going to take the 315th Rifle up. Oh no, ran into a Panzer unit. That's not good. So we'll bring up another Rifle Division. Move you there. Let's see, you're all part of the 28th Army. I think the 28th Army is going to have continuous circling. So we're going to move up the 27th Guard here. Yeah, you guys might be in for some trouble. Let's see what we can do in terms of support unit to try to help. If there really is a Panzer Division sitting on the other side, let's add this anti-tank regiment. We're also going to do the same with the 315th. We're going to add another anti-tank regiment. Just, at the very least, if they counterattack, I want to take out as many of their armored fighting vehicles as I possibly can. Probably going to throw away more gun platforms than necessary, doing it so hastily and with such a poor defensive position, but I want to make an effort. Here we're going to move this 40th Guard up. And here, let's take this 321st over here. And we're going to take the 252nd down here. So now we've captured that port. So that's a pretty important hex that we've gotten. Let's take a look at depots and such. Yeah, look at how all of these guys have been getting resupplied from this one hex. But that should be able to change now as we get depots in these 2 hexes here. So that's encouraging to me. It looks like... Where did you get resupplied from? I'm confused by this line that's going right here, but okay. That's that. We continue to have Rostov encircled. I'm wondering if now isn't the time to just kind of push on them a little. So this is 2-1. Let's go ahead and do that. They held, but they're reduced to 0 fortification level. What if we take you 2 and attack? No. Alright. Maybe we get some fresh units up to the front, right? So let's take you off. Let's take you off. We're going to bring up some new Rifle Divisions here. Right? Take that entire stack, actually, and move you up. And then here, it's going to exhaust you. We're going to move you back. And we're going to take the 25th Rifle Division. Here we can do something similar where we move all of you units off. And we're going to take the 32nd Guard up, the 11th, and the 2nd Guard. And now we get to attack again. 3-1. They retreat it. Great news. And now what are we going to do? We're going to take all of you and attack. Probably not going to win, but we're going to wear them down at the very least. Yep, fort level down to 0. Lost a lot of armor doing that, but now they find themselves in a tough position. And then we're going to take like the 51st Rifle and just move them up. Okay. And what's the next unit that we want to move up there? Could probably do these 2 brigades. Let's do that. There you go. There we go. So then the following turn, we can attack again. Hell, we might even do this one more time. So if we, for example, take this 5th Guard Cavalry, now it's going to be more important that we move you up to the front and use you to keep pushing, I think. That's what we're going to do with you. We know we're going to take Rostov, right? That's just a certainty at this point. So let's instead use these units to try to push through. Yep. Nope, don't have enough to attack. Okay, very well. Move you guys up. Up. We're going to continue our advance on Stalino. Yeah, HQ and all. I'm going to move all of you up here. There we go. That's an HQ and an artillery, so that's fine as is. So maybe I'm going to move the artillery up here to maybe help defend. Yeah. Hopefully that helps defend a little against a counterattack there. Okay. Good. Yeah, they don't have enough to break through there. We have defense value 25. They have offensive of 17. And I'm certain they're down to almost no supplies. So that shouldn't be an issue at all. Okay. Good. Good news. Well, this has been busy, guys. This has been a lot of action here. You can see, as we expected, right? They've started to form a defensive line. I'm encouraged by the fact that so much of it seems to be units that aren't necessarily full divisions worth of defense. It looks like they're breaking out to separate regiments, brigades, security units, etc., etc. So hopefully that provides us an opportunity to keep doing as we've been doing all throughout the series. Take advantage of weak points in the line, push through, force them to reallocate forces where they have taken forces from, then continue pressuring there, right? It's that entire algorithm of how we continue to push against them that has been so successful. I think, looking at this too, I think what we're going to probably do is like these units here, we're probably not going to push them further southwest. I think I want them to stay and kind of say, okay, the southernmost tip of our line is held here. I might move. I know I just said that, but I'm going to move you one up. So that way, eventually, this rail line, right, has that buffer hex. And hell, because we moved one up, let's actually go ahead and push. Nope, sorry, you don't have enough to do so. Yes, now we have a buffer hex there. Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, anyways, I want to keep this as the southernmost point of the front. And I want to take these forces and have them move west and then kind of collapse in on Stalino. That's the plan. Racing down here to this port doesn't get us quite as much as instead taking these rail lines that run into Stalino. Because if we don't move from the north, if we don't go from the northeast to the southwest, we're going to miss out on this rail line, this rail line, this rail line, right? All of these are running through Stalino. So that's the plan with this entire front. Now we come down here to our potential push on, well, our potential push on the Crimea. My oh my, right? So let's get everyone ready for this. That Rifle Corps can come here. You will be reserves, I guess. So we have 70 offensive combat value here, but we can only do 3 chips in a hex at a time attacking. But I am optimistic that we will be able to actually assault there. And then I think we'll use this rifle corps to do an amphibious assault right here behind them. Right. Yeah. A little curious why it says troop ship 0. Hoping that's not actually the case and I'm just missing something there. Alright. Good. This is looking good. I don't know that we have enough to move in. Oh, sorry, wrong movement mode. Yes, we do. We're going to wait one more turn. I'm going to give these guys one more turn to get ready. Maybe 2. No, I just said 1. Maybe 2 turns. Yeah, where are they getting their supply from right now? They're getting it from this port. So that's actually not too bad. It's not that far away. There's roads, etc. I'm wondering, though, if we don't then take the 56 Army HQ and let's put that on the actual port. Now they're out of range, which is better. We'll do it like this, because I think right now the issue is the supply situation of these units. Like, general supplies at 30% on those 2 units is just scary to me. Alright, so that's done. Rail repair time, because why not? There are so many rails to repair. So we're going to move them up, hit R. We're just going to keep rinsing, repeating this process as far west as we can. There we go. Actually ran out of points to be able to repair that one. I think we're going to have a decision point in the next turn, 2 episodes from now, of are we going to repair this rail unit? Are we going to have the rail unit repair, because it splits here, are we going to go south, right, towards this little Crimea pocket? Or are we going to push north towards Rostov? My gut is telling me push north towards Rostov. 2 reasons for that. One, if we end up taking this peninsula, and we go across the strait and we're successful here, I think we're going to be getting all of our supplies from the port anyways, not necessarily the rail line. That's one thing. The second is when we look at the actual rail line, one of the reasons we chose this right here to move on, I don't know if we've talked about this on the rail lines, there are 2 different visual representations of rail lines in the game. One that looks like this, where you see white, gray, right? And the other one where it's just this gray with these hash marks going perpendicular to the line, right? Where it's white, gray, that represents 2 rail lines, 2-way traffic, however you want to speak in rail terms, right? So there's theoretically, right, double the capacity. So this is a much more important rail line because it can carry significantly more goods than, say, this rail line right here. And this runs from Grozny in the east all the way up towards Rostov. And I think that's going to be very important, that we then use that to get supplies into Rostov as quickly as possible. Because if we can start getting Rostov completely supplied through rail lines from Grozny, from Stalingrad on these 2 routes, we're cooking. We're cooking if we can do that. So let's keep repairing rails, excuse me. And I may have made a horrible blunder. I see that this is actually still an access hex. Oh my gosh. So we're going to take that, and then we're going to take this. Oh my. I wonder how badly that's going to come back to bite us. So we're going to have you go here, repair that hex. And then going to need you to come down back here to that one. And then you're going to continue on along, continuing to push south and repairing this line. Okay. Okay. Almost there. On that side, over here, Gonna keep up the progress, right? Alright. So when we look at those icons, these will be repaired, these will be repaired. These now make sense, right? It's showing yellow because we didn't have that hex. I don't know how I had missed that. Okay. Gotta pay attention to the details. You gotta with this game because there's so many details to look at. We're gonna keep going now with our movement. So the central front, I think we're actually gonna move down a little further here. And then we have, let's see. And then we have the 66 Army HQ here. And we're going to move them up to this hex. And I know I say this all the time. Truly, I know I say this all the time. We're going to take another 2 turns to move up the 66 Army. And then wait for it. This is the kick. We're going to let the 66 Army just sit in the rear, lower fatigue, build up combat prep. I know there'll be an opening in the line. We'll deploy them right away. You know, it's actually very historical in how that always plays out. You always have these intentions to let these units rest and sit in the rear, recover a little bit. But then by the time you get them up to where they're near the front and they're sitting in reserve, you sit there and you go, well, no, I could use them now. Look what they could do if I use them now. So I'm sure that will probably happen again. But we're going to keep moving all of these units down here. This is the 64th Army. And, you know, as the situation over here develops north towards Kursk, this may be a situation, too, where we take, like, the 64th Army. And although they're not going to be immediately as near as, say, these units we were moving from Stalingrad, maybe we bring them up a little more north on the line and do a bit of that shuffle we're so famous for, where we move armies north. The 64th Army fills in their spot, right, and it gives us more reinforcements up towards Kursk. So it could be a bit of a shuffle action as we move up there, you know? Move these guys further down the line. Take you there. A lot of units to move. It's almost like 4 or 5 armies had encircled Stalingrad and now have nothing to do. And then this motorized group is going to move right there. Okay. So that takes care of them. He could move there, but it won't do us anything. There's no rail. 62nd Army. Need to remember where the 62nd Army is going. The 62nd Army is going over here. Okay. And you are all 62nd Army. So we're going to keep you on the rail. And we might now move you here now that we know this threat that we have happening near Kursk. Yeah, so I'm going to move you there. So 62nd Army is going to continue moving up the rail line to try to help reinforce this buildup that is near Kursk. And it really is amazing how much adding just one army is going to do to help defend this line. Right? By just adding 1 infantry division to each hex, it's going to double often the defensive values that we have there. So I think it's nothing but good news. Now we're going to take all these guys off the train. Right? Good. Good. This entire stack we will move here, I think. Could move you there. I think we might move you there. So I think we might have like the 62nd Army HQ kind of sit here, and then the 62nd Army stretches from here to here, maybe? Where am I more worried about on the front? I'm really kind of worried about right here. Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep you here. I'm going to have you disembark there. So get all of you off the train. Go back to regular movement mode. And we'll move you up here. And on regular movement mode, you can come off the tracks there. And you part of the 62nd Army? You are part of the 62nd Army. My goodness, there are so many of you. Let's move you to the stack. Now we will take all of you up to here. Okay. So 62nd Army is rather large. So this is already 9 divisions that we've moved up. Then we have the HQ there. And I think there were a couple in Stalingrad, or maybe we already moved those. So the 62nd Army should be a pretty substantial impact to helping reinforce this line. I mean, we really are talking about probably 100,000 men that we're throwing at the problem. Not to mention the equipment that they come with. So, it should be good news. Now we're going to take you off the train. Regular movement mode. Yeah, you don't really have enough to move there. We're not going to push you to exhaustion just to get there sooner. And this is the last stack of the 62nd Army. So, for you, I might move you all the way up here just for the sake of... So we're going to have 9 divisions defending here. Then we can have another 3 reinforce these hexes. I think that's going to be the plan. So this is going to take another minute for these units to travel on the map. I know I mentioned this in the previous turn, but I probably should have looked at the settings for the speed at which they move across the map, knowing we would have to do this. It was a bit of a miss on my part. They're going to have to stay on the rail for another turn here, because we won't have enough strategic movement points to disembark them. So remember, when you're moving things by rail, you have this movement value right here that starts at 200. They need to have at least 100 to get off the train. And it looks like this unit actually didn't have enough to get all the way there. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, well, that's fine. So we're going to need one more turn still. And we need to move the HQ. Can't forget about the HQ. The HQ I think we're going to put right here in the city, because I'm assuming that's where the depot is going to be. Maybe I should have looked, though. Oh, there's a depot there. I feel like I even noticed that before. Oh, yeah, don't have enough, so you have to stay on the train another turn. Okay. 62nd Army is moved. Well, minus you guys that are stuck there. And then we had over here the 4th Guards Army. Oh my goodness. Is that... Oh, 64th is different than the 64th. Right, I forgot about you. You got left behind because I misclicked. I forgot about you. So you're going to have to trudge it out through this terrain here. Go one more. So now you're sheltered in that town in the middle of winter. So that should help with attrition. Alright, back to the point here. We have the 4th Guards and the 5th Tank Army. That's who we're moving, right? Before we do that, I'm actually going to go over to Moscow. Because if you remember, something we did in the previous turn was we brought in the 1st Tank Army HQ, and we brought in these tank corps. So we're actually going to assign these to the 1st Tank Army. We'll do that first. Okay. You are also part of the 1st Tank Army now. Right. And 1st Tank Army. Okay. So let's move you there. take, yeah, if we take you two, move you via rail, let's get you over to the Adritsa front, right? So we're gonna move you up to this hex. Then again, we'll have to wait another turn to disembark these units. This is probably going to hurt the supply to these units a little bit, but I think getting these 3 armies, 2 from Stalingrad and then the 1st Tank Army, I think all of those assets combined, it's going to be worth having interrupted supply for a couple of turns. The only caveat's going to be is if we find that the interrupted supply, if it ends up hampering our ability to take advantage of this opening in their front line. Right? That's my only real concern. Gonna move you guys up to this hex. I worry because this one ended up with fewer movement points. I probably should have just embarked it on the rail right in the hex that it was in, because I'm sure it was on a railway sitting there in Moscow. So I'm worried it's gonna stop somewhere up there. And sure enough, it did. Great. What do we have in Moscow still? Stavka, 1st Tank Army. Okay, so now we just need to move the HQ. Move you to that hex. So then next turn, the 1st Tank Army can all disembark. Good news. Really great news, actually. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now we go back to the Stalingrad armies that we have been moving. All right. And you are already all... We're not loaded on trains. Was I not going to move you via train? I feel like I was going to move all of you via train. But you're not on the train. Do we... This whole Kursk situation has me a little concerned the more and more I think about it. Do we want to maybe keep one of these armies here towards Kursk? Well, we already have them so close. Does that maybe make sense? I feel like it does. I feel like it's just a bit more of a logical decision. There's such silence on the airwaves here as I think about this, but yeah, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna move. Yeah, we're not gonna get distracted by Kursk. We are going to stick to our strategic objectives. That would be my advice to you, the player watching this, is the complexity in this game is so immense. I need to shut up for a moment. I'm going to have these guys start moving so that way I can say my little ramble here while the units are moving across the map. This would be my advice to you, the viewer. The complexity of the game is such that I think it's important that when you're dealing with so much detail, so much micromanagement, that you stay true to your core strategies, your principles that you established from the get-go, and that every couple of turns you review, you re-examine to see if anything needs to be adjusted. You have to stick to those strategic objectives and plans you set for yourself. Otherwise, you will find yourself lost a little bit in the minutiae and distracted by shiny objects here and there and here and there. And an example I'd provide for all of you in that was that in 2 episodes ago now, turn 14, the Germans had redeployed their primary armored force to block our offensive on Adritsa, right? And it pretty much put the breakthroughs we had planned there at a standstill. But what did we do? We instead looked for other areas on the front line that would ultimately help us still reach the same objective, right? We looked for opportunities to put pressure on them, forcing them to allow us to break through. So what did we do? We pushed strong south of Lake Ilmen. We pulled back near Idritsa to maintain our defensive line. And we pushed hard near Smolensk to force a reaction from them. But all of those things we did were to maintain our strategic objective of trying to break through the German line towards Riga, cutting off Army Group North near Leningrad. Right? Instead, what we could have done instead was we could have sat there and said, well, this kind of sucks. Maybe the new strategic objective should be that we go and we attack Orel. Right? We didn't make that decision. Instead, we looked for an alternative that helped us fulfill the strategic objective of reaching Riga. Right? Putting pressure on them elsewhere. We're going to do the same thing here. Could we reinforce Kursk more heavily? Yes. Is Kursk or has Kursk been part of our strategic objectives? No. Does reinforcing Kursk help us distract the German forces or to pull them away from a different area of the front? Not really. It is in the German side's interests that we sit there and reinforce our front line and stare at each other across fortified foxholes and trenches. Right? That benefits the German player right here because they are on the defensive. They don't want us to be mobile. They don't want us to be fast reacting and forcing them all along the front line to different positions to defend. They want us to dig in right across the trenches from from where they've dug in. That's ideal for the German player. We're not going to play that game. We're not going to throw caution to the wind either, though. Right? We're not just going to say, oh well, these armies are screwed. They're going to get run over, and they'll have a huge breakout. Right? We're not saying that either. But what we are saying is, let's stay focused on Rostov. Let's stay focused on our push towards Riga, right? And manage everything else where we possibly can. Taking this entire army so far, the 4th Guards Army, I want it to route them up north here and then through Ryazan and continue going west, right? Trying to keep them out of areas like Tula and what was the other one I saw down here? Tambov, right, where a lot of the supplies are trying to get to the front. I wanted to try to avoid those routes, and you'll see that as we're moving this army, each of these went a little less in terms of distance. That's because we're using up so much of the freight line that we're not able to get all of the units to the same hex. We've exhausted so much of the freight capacity. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 5th Army here, 5th Tank Army, and we're just going to move them the old-fashioned way, a little bit at a time. Right? We're not going to push them hard. Just going to go a little bit at a time. Okay. Good, good, good. You go up there. All right, then. And you are... Yep, that's all the 5th Tank Army. Good. 1st Guards Army. The 1st Guards Army has no units in it. Well, heck. Where do I want the 1st Guards Army to go then? Let's put the 1st Guards Army over towards Idritsa. Right? So we'll try to remember to keep moving them west towards Idritsa. All right. I think that wraps up our actions here. I'm going to do one quick check to make sure we don't have any rail repair units we haven't paid attention to. So I know we had the 3 down here we actioned. We also did the 1 down by the Caucasus region. Don't think there were any that we had in the north to worry about. I think we moved them all to repair the rail lines towards Stalingrad. Okay, yeah, so there's nothing there. So with that, we're going to do a quick check reserve boxes and all of this, right? We're all green here. There's no worries. Continue to be above expectations in terms of commitment to those theater boxes. So we're going to center ourselves back to Leningrad. We're going to do the AI depot management. And without doing any new mechanics and without doing an air phase, we have had 2 1-hour-long episodes to finish up turn 15. And we're going to hit end turn. So these have been getting pretty long. But as I mentioned kind of at the beginning of the episode, it will not be that every turn we have so much ground combat that we have to execute. I mean, if you recall back to like episode 4 and 5, right? We were in such a difficult supply situation. And it was such a static front that we were having 40-minute episodes plus some mechanic talk because there weren't that many battles and decisions to make in terms of the front line. Now there are. That will ebb and flow as the series goes on, because we're not going to maintain this level of offensive push towards Berlin for the next 120 some odd turns until the end of the scenario. At the beginning of the series, I actually sat there thinking, am I even going to be able to find myself in a winning position by the time the scenario ends, right? New to the series, had some experience with Gary Grigsby games before, but never really became an expert like there are so many out there in the community. And it's a daunting and complicated game. So I didn't have any expectations of this will be an easy victory, but as I look at this, I think probably going to jinx myself again because I keep doing that. I think we actually stand a really good chance of winning this scenario, and I'm optimistic that we can even do it ahead of schedule. But that may just be me riding the high that has been turn 15. Turn 15 I thought was just fantastic in terms of our overall successes that we had on the front. So with any luck, we may actually finish this series before the fall of 1945. And I want to ensure all of you that we will be doing another scenario after this. I don't know which scenario yet, but I'm not going to be done with this game once we finish this Stalingrad to Berlin scenario. So start thinking about maybe what scenario you'd want to see most. Okay, we're going to get back to the action here. South towards Rostov, we actually managed to hold there. No, it looks like the Panzer unit pushed back our encirclement. But I don't know if it's going to have enough movement to get out. Hopefully that Panzer division can't escape and run away. They're counterattacking north by Smolensk, and we actually managed to hold 2 counterattacks there, which is pretty happy with. And then right as I say that, of course, they break through successfully. So we're going to have to deal with some of this in the next episodes. So they've had 2 successful counterattacks north of Smolensk. We held in this spearhead that we had going south towards Smolensk, so I'm very encouraged by that. And I don't think... Yeah, we held again just on the outskirts of Smolensk proper. Oh, no, but then they forced us back in the second attack. Okay, that was tough. That was tough. Still, we have broken through their line, right? They do not have us contained. Again, broke through here. They're trying to push us back. We held the first counterattack. This is down by Adritsa. We kind of expected that. Where we got pushed back here. Our tank corps, though, I'm hesitant to say this because I'm sure as soon as I do, they'll attack, but our tank corps that we had been aggressive near Adritsa, and I said might be the greatest mistake that I made in the turn. It doesn't look like they counterattacked that, so I'm hopeful maybe we can hold on to that. This is south of Lake Ilmen. An interesting point that they're trying to counterattack us in, and they were unsuccessful this time. Even if they do break through, we have enough reserve units here to fill that hole. This is good news, though, because it means they're not using their resources to stop our breakout. Right, so this means we can continue breaking out at this pocket to use our numerical advantage that we have and get in behind these entrenched forces. So quite a bit of action again from the Germans in terms of counterattacks. I think they're wrapping up now. And overall, I'm pretty happy with it. They had some wins, but I knew they would. There's no way that we can take 50 different hexes from them in one turn and not have successful German counterattacks. It even fits their stereotype of just the German army was known for counterattacks. That was their thing in World War II. Yeah, look at this. Look at this south of Lake Gilman. We can break through this so easily. This is going to be a good turn. Turn 16 will be. Really looking forward to that. That is great news for us. And then they're doing their air resupply, which we're just going to skip through as fast as we can. They didn't even counterattack near Orel. Look at this. No counterattacks by Orel. But they did bring in some armor elements. So that's interesting. And I'm wondering if they reallocated them here. Yeah, it looks like they reallocated them from this buildup that they had near Kursk. So this goes back to my little ramble I was going on about stick to your strategic objectives, right? We are sticking to our strategic objectives, and that has forced the German player to make a decision of taking armor from where they maybe wanted an offensive to then try to counterattack the moves we were making, right? Use the initiative and keep them pushed back. That's the goal. I see here they counterattacked up to that hex. That's a little surprising to me. I didn't see that had happened. So we'll have to handle that, but it shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't be an issue. Going through our AI logistics phase here, and then we'll do the end of turn summary and news events. What a couple of episodes. I hope you guys have had as much fun with this turn as I have. This turn 15 was probably one of my favorite turns of my entire War in the East to experience thus far, just with the amount of decisions and action that happened in that turn. And also just having that reinforcement that the strategies we have chosen to implement have been working. I think this was kind of the turn where we saw a lot of that come to fruition. And that's always encouraging to see when you have to manage all these different details and aspects of the game. So, good news there. Bring us back to Leningrad, go over the turn summary. We lost 72,000 men. That is a new high for us. That is the highest we have had in the series, if memory serves correctly. Lost 1,200 guns, 525 armored fighting vehicles. Those are actually pretty on par with what the previous turn or twos were. Did lose 84 airframes, which I'm guessing may have been another theater boxes or something. So we didn't do anything with our airframes in this turn. Absolutely nothing. Order of battle, we had a net loss of 20,000 men. We also had a net loss of 464 guns, 352 armored fighting vehicles, and 80 airframes. The German player actually was even worse off in almost all those categories. They lost 32,000 men, 670 guns. They did see a positive increase in armor, and they have had, not every turn, but pretty consistently, they've had that trend, which has been one of the only things that has worried me looking at these end of turn summaries in terms of order of battle changes, because we rely so heavily on a numerical advantage here. And then they also lost 100 airframes as a net total. We went up to 92 units on low supply. If you recall, 2 or 3 turns ago, this number was actually at about 70. So it's gone up a little bit, but we haven't yet quite hit those crisis levels we were experiencing back around turn, I think it was 10, 9, 8, where we were around 140 units on low supply. So I'm not too worried about that, and especially since I know most of those are going to be south towards Rostov, and we have a game plan to get them back in supply as quickly as possible. So that's not too much of a concern for me. Let's look at the new news events quite a few news events here. So more men for the ground forces. So it looks like German manpower multiplier is increased, a bit of a historical event here where they freed up men from the Kriegsmarine and Luftwaffe. So Luftwaffe is their Air Force, Kriegsmarine is their Navy. So they took, say, crews that maybe would have been manning destroyers, right, that have been sitting in port for most of the war because they didn't really have much naval action except up near Scandinavia, and said, okay, you get to go to the front line on the ground in the Eastern Front. So that's added to their manpower multiplier. It looks like there's some RAF raids in 1943, which is doing additional damage to the manpower of Germany. Mighty 8th continue their air raids. Secondary front strengthened. So, let's see. Soviet forces in the secondary fronts improve from lessons learned against the Germans. So Far East ground requirement increases to 205, air to 40, northern air to 25, Transcaucasus to 6. So I'm trying to understand this one a little because we've actually been maintaining such... I mean, we've been at like 115, 120% in those theater boxes above our requirements. So I would have actually expected our requirements to go down because I think that would have implied that we were winning in those theater boxes. But here it actually looks like our requirements are increasing. And we see that even just from the color coding where now in the Far East and the Transcaucasus region, we're not meeting our requirements anymore. So we're going to have to take a look at that in the next 2 episodes. Looks like the Germans had naval success in North Africa, so North African campaign events are moved back. Looks like the Germans lose 1 victory point and 1 administrative point because of not committing enough forces to the Western Europe theater box. So that's good news for us. Soviet partisans continue. And then Heroes of Telemark. So this was up in Scandinavia, a historical event that happened with the resistance movement in Norway specifically, where it really caused the Germans a lot of problems. And I don't see any multipliers to the game, so it might be a bit of a flavor event that was added here. So that's the news events. And with that, we're going to call this episode to a close. As always, thank you for watching the video. Thank you for supporting this series. It really does mean a lot. Should you have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them in the comments below. Do my best to address them as always. I'd also say the series has been going very well. I hinted at it a little earlier. This won't be the last scenario we do. We will do another scenario or 2 after this with War in the East 2, and we will start looking at other games too, but I'm so addicted to this game right now, I can't even really spend too much time thinking about others. So let me know your thoughts on next scenarios that maybe we can address, and we can certainly take a look at them. With that, thanks so much, Strategy Gamers. Have yourselves a great day, and bye now.